Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joyofbaking.com. Today we're going to make pumpkin cupcakes, and we're going to cover them with a delicious and tangy cream cheese frosting. So the first thing we'll do is the pumpkin cupcakes. So preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 180 degrees Celsius, and you will need a 12-cup muffin pan, and you can either, like I've done here, line it with paper liners, or you could just lightly butter the cups, or even just spray them with one of those non-stick cooking sprays. And we'll start with the dry ingredients. In a bowl, you will need 1.5 cups, which is 195 grams of all-purpose white flour, or you might know that as plain flour. And to that, I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and then we're going to add some nice warm spices that bring out the complement the flavor of the pumpkin. And it's 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, 1/4 teaspoon of ground ginger, and 1/4 teaspoon of ground cloves. Just add that in. Now, some people don't like ground cloves. It's a strong flavor, so you could leave that out or cut back a little on that if you want. So just either, I'm just going to whisk it together. I mean, you could sift it. The important thing is just to get all the baking powder, baking soda, and the spices all mixed into the flour. Okay, so that's done. So then, if you have an electric stand mixer like I have, just use the paddle attachment, or you could easily just use a hand mixer. So we need 1/2 cup, it's 113 grams of butter, and have that at room temperature. Now I'm using unsalted butter because I like the flavor better. You could use salted. If I was using salted butter though, I would leave out the salt in the recipe. So I'm just going to beat the butter just until it's nice and creamy and smooth. Okay, so this is, I don't know whether you can see that. This is what you're looking for. We just want to get some air. It's going to be quite thick because there is a lot of sugar compared to the amount of butter. But we just want to get some air in there. Makes the cupcakes more light tasting. Okay, scrape off the beater here. Okay, so now we're going to add 2 large eggs, have those at room temperature, along with 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And I'm going to add the eggs one at a time and beating after each one, just until they're incorporated, all mixed in. Scrape down the sides, make sure we got everything. And now I'm going to add the flour alternately with 3/4 cup, which is about 180 milliliters of pure pumpkin, or you might know it as pumpkin puree. If you're buying the canned, buy the pumpkin that does not have any spices added. And if you want to make your own, there is in the head note how to do that. So I'm just going to add about 1/3 of the flour, and I'm just going to beat that in. Keep your mixer fairly on low speed because you don't want that flour coming up in your face. Okay. Scrape down as much as you need to. And I'm just going to add 1/2 of the pumpkin. And 1/2 of the flour. This is like your basic cake batter, what I'm doing here. And now, this is the pumpkin. Really smell all the spices in here in the pumpkin. And lastly, the rest of the flour. Okay, and we're done. Beautiful batter. Just gonna make sure all that flour's mixed in. Quick stir. And then we're going to evenly divide it as best as you can into the muffin cups. You could even add a little bit of, you know, half a cup of chopped nuts if you'd like, or mini chocolate chips. Today we'll just do it plain. Just enjoy the pumpkin as it is. Okay, so into the oven, somewhere between 18-20 minutes, or until they're, you put a toothpick in the center of one, it'll come out clean. Okay, our pumpkin cupcakes are now done. As you can see, they've got a nice rise to them, and if you put a toothpick in the center, it'll come out clean. So I'm going to let these cool completely, and then we will make the cream cheese frosting. So now we'll make the cream cheese frosting. Again, if you have an electric stand mixer, use a paddle attachment, or you could really just use a hand mixer for this. You will need 4 ounces, which is about 115 grams of cream cheese at room temperature, and I'm using the full fat cream cheese, along with 2 tablespoons, about 30 grams of butter, and have that at room temperature. And just put that in the bowl. And I'm going to beat this until it's nice and creamy and smooth. You want to get rid of all the lumps and make sure it's nice and smooth. Okay, so it's nice and smooth. So next, add a half a teaspoon of pure vanilla extract. Now, if you didn't want to flavor it vanilla, you could use an orange extract, lemon. You might want to use a little less, or you could even, orange would be very nice with the pumpkin. You could even add a little grated orange zest to this frosting. And then I'm adding 1½ cups, which is 175 grams of confectioner sugar. You may know that as powdered or icing sugar. And sift that first, because icing sugar usually has lumps, and we don't want any lumps in our frosting, so to sift that. Now I'm going to start this on low speed because we don't want that sugar coming up in our face. And then once it's all mixed in, then just turn up your mixer speed a bit and continue to beat until the frosting is really nice and light and fluffy and a spreading consistency. Just take a couple minutes. Okay, so we're done. Scrape your beater off. Get all that frosting. So this is kind of what you're looking for. Just nice spreading consistency. Now, if it was a little too thick, you could add a little cream or milk to thin it out. If you found it was too thin, then you could just add a little more sugar. So just play around with it if it's not right. Now, there's a couple ways you can frost your cupcakes. Typically what I do just for every day, because I like frosting, but I don't like too much. So I just, with either a knife or I'm using a little spatula here, I just spread some. As always, as much or as little as you want. And just like that. And then if you want, you can sprinkle a little chopped nuts, pecans or walnuts or almonds. Or what I'm using here, I really like, is these little English toffee bits, which are, you can just buy them in bags in the baking section along where you get the chocolate chips. And they have a nice little crunch. Kind of the same color as the pumpkin cupcakes. So that's, you can just do it like that. And of course the other way is what we're seeing a lot of today, is where you pipe. Now, if you want lots of frosting on every cupcake, I might double this recipe. If you're a person that likes lots and lots of frosting. Now, I'm just using you can just get these cake decorating stores or Michael's, Joann's, these disposable piping bags, which are kind of handy. And I'm just using a star tip. You can use any kind of tip, just kind of buy a few and experiment and see what kind you like, design. And then you can either put, if you just fold down the flap of the piping bag over your hand like this, you can just put the icing in, or you could use a cup and just put it that way if you find that easier. The more experience you get, the more at ease you will be with piping. Good thing about it, if it doesn't turn out, you can always just scrape off the icing from the cupcake and try again. As much as practice away. Okay, so then put that. Now you want to try to get as much of the air out of this as possible, or otherwise you'll get pockets when you start piping, which isn't too good. So just press down and squeeze until you start to see it come out of the tip. And then just take it in your hand and twist it, and that way no more air will get in there. And then just take your cupcake and hold it and use your other hand as a guide. And you can start on the outside or the inside, and with even pressure, just go around. Slow, even pressure. Like I said, this takes a little practice. And then stop, and then pull up. And then you get a nice little tip. I'll just do another one here. Again, I'll start on the outside. I tend to do that. And just go around. And then just stop the pressure, let go, and then just straight up. And then that way you can get if you want the little tip on the end. And again, I'm just going to sprinkle with my toffee bits here. Now, these will have to be refrigerated if you're not serving right away, because cream cheese, I don't like to leave it out for more than a couple hours. So there you have it, pumpkin cupcakes. So until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joyofbaking.com.